In 2017, there was $3 trillion of unregistered securities raised. So if you're an operator or just getting started, there's $3 trillion at least per year, and this was just in 2017, available for your offerings. Isn't that great? If you're a passive investor looking for opportunities, the SEC reported in 2017 that there was over 37,000 offerings provided in 1 year, all around about $1 million. If you want to learn about who's making offerings, every single listing of a unregistered security, which, by the way, there's more unregistered securities in the United States every year than there are registered securities. And that's what typically we do as sponsors. But you could go to formsd.com and learn about every single offering that takes place. You can Google my name, you can Google Spartan Investment Group, you can Google whoever in FormsD and search and find everybody raising capital on that website. But just a little bit about myself. My name's Ryan Gibson, Chief Investment Officer with Spartan Investment Group. That's me in an Alaska Airlines 737. Not on Halloween. I was an actual pilot for Alaska for a few years. And I am holding my 2-month-old daughter on her way out to Hawaii. That was her first flight. She's 5 now. And I come from a background of an environment where if we make mistakes, bad things happen. So process-driven, really like checklists, really like approaches, and I encourage everybody to come up with their own process and consistently evaluating an operator or a sponsor. I just happen to be partnered with a guy that also bad things happens when mistakes are made. Scott Lewis, our CEO, co-founder. He served in Iraqi freedom. That's him in a very challenging assignment, also in Hawaii, hanging out of one of his favorite things, a helicopter. And as Ben mentioned previously, we met at this conference, and I want to stress the importance of the networking that goes on here and the companies that come out of this conference. I'm so impressed with people I met back in 2017 and how far their businesses have come. So it all starts with a good operator. So how do you find them? You can go online. You can go through networking groups like this one today. There's a ton of operators. You can go through fund-to-funds, allocators of capital that raise and place LP investments. You can go find syndication groups like Left Field Investors as an example. Or you can find them through projects. You can learn about how different projects come together through case studies and webinars. But no matter what you do, it always starts with an operator. And building your list of operators is what creates an environment where you can make the best decisions on your investments. So let's talk about that initial interview. Everybody knows you fill out an intake form on the operator's website, and you either do a Zoom call or a lot of those lately, and a phone call, or perhaps maybe you even met at this event. And I encourage everybody to ask better questions. Ask great questions. But I always say start with open-ended questions. Get the operator talking. What was the most exciting thing that happened to you in 2021? What was your biggest regret in what you purchased last year? What's your least favorite deal? Get them talking about where they're at. Keep written notes. I had an interview with a very sophisticated investor today, and he wrote down every single thing that I said as a record. Do that. Build your own Q&A process and be consistent when you're evaluating who to invest with. Review their portfolio of projects. What have they done? What haven't they done? What have been their returns, pro forma versus actual? And ask for referrals, and we're going to touch on that in a minute. And visit their properties. I can't stress this enough. You can take away so much when you visit somebody at their office, at their corporate headquarters. Too many people glaze over the importance of in-person meetups or in-person meetings. Walk a property that they own with one of the members of their team. Talk to their store manager. Talk to other people in their office. Learn the soft skills. What goes on day to day? How are their employees enjoying their work? So, operator or syndicator, it's important to know the difference. Who are you talking to? Is this person just allocating funds with another operator? Or is this person also raising the money and operating the deal? Understand the players. That's your first step. Who am I talking to? What is their role? Figure out how they're aligned with the success of the project. Do they get a split? Do they get fees? Do they get a little bit of both? How are they aligned with the success of the project? Probably the most important thing in your investing journey. What is the company's mission, vision, values? Does it align with your mission, vision, values, with your purpose? Then ask the great question, how have you upheld your values? How do you uphold your values at your company? Is it just something that they've written on the wall, on their business card? Is it something they just say to attract investor capital? Ask them for a specific example of how their values were tested and what they did. Get that great conversation going with that operator. And then ask them for a recent example. Ask them, what value do you uphold the most, and what value do you uphold the least in the ones that you've listed? That's one of our projects. F1 tornado took it out. This was a RV park in West Texas that relies on oil production and natural gas. And this happened right after COVID, right after the Saudi Arabia-Russia dumping of oil onto the market. We were losing occupancy. COVID was shutting down travel. Oil was going negative, and then the very next day, an F1 tornado came through our park and ripped it to shreds. Not a fun experience. So ask the operator, what have they been through? What has been your worst deal? And they might say, oh, all my deals have gone great. Okay. You either just started yesterday, or you haven't done a deal yet. Something always goes wrong, and you want to assess how the operator has worked through the challenges, recovered the project. How did that investor get communicated to while this was going on? We sent video updates every single day. We communicated with our investors every single day until we had the park back online. Now let's talk about referrals. Referrals are funny. Who here has given a bad referral to somebody? Yeah, I really want you to call my college professor that I skipped class in, right? No. People don't give bad referrals. So it's your job to find the right mix of people to help paint the picture of who you're about to do business with. You find your own referrals. When we were interviewing contractors, we didn't ask the contractor for referrals. We said, who are your subcontractors? And we went and talked to them. And the big smile on their face told us everything we needed to know, that they were great to work with. How about somebody who has invested in 75% of your deals? Who's your biggest advocate? Who's the person who's investing in every single project consistently? A raving fan, right? That's the good, right? Then maybe somebody who has invested in your worst project. I want the investor who's invested in your worst project. You just told me it was that one project where there was a tornado. I want to talk to somebody from that project. And I want to learn their experience of how they handled things going poorly. And lastly, probably my favorite, I want to talk to a person who's only invested in one of your private placements. And ask them, why did you stop investing? Would you consider doing another investment with this operator? The next part is communication plan policy. Let's talk about how the operator intends to communicate with you. What's nice about stock market investing is you can log on, you can see exactly what's going on. That's bad today for some, for most, but you know what's going on with your money. You can click a button, you can get it back. In this game, It's a 5-year hold, it's a 10-year hold, it's an evergreen fund. You don't know, the money's tied up, it's an illiquid investment. So communication provides a lot of transparency that allows you to know what's going on and makes you feel good. We want to know what's happening, good, bad, or ugly. So ask the operator, what is your communications plan? And do you write down the communication policy in your offering documents? Do you put it in your operating agreement, or is it just something you say on the phone? Do you share bad news? Your worst project, can I see the communications that you sent on your worst project? Because I want to see how you communicate when things are bad. Look for a pro forma versus actual. Can you understand where the investor was supposed to land and where they're actually at? And do you share financials on a regular basis? So let's get into corporate versus property due diligence. I'll give you some bad news. If you're a limited partner, it is impossible for you to do proper due diligence on a property that you're investing in as a syndicated entity. I'm sorry. If you're a passive investor, you're not going to look at all the property inspections. You're not going to drive every property. You're not going to look at the title exceptions. You're not looking through the loan documents. You're not looking through the environmental study, the geotech report, the survey. You're not doing any of those things, and that's okay. You're passive. You might look at the offering memorandum. You might look at the financials, but garbage in, garbage out, right? You can do anything to a pro forma. You can do anything to your offering memorandum. The purpose is to sell you, right? But you're not going to be able to do all of the due diligence that an operator does or should be doing before making an investment. So guess what? Do the due diligence on the company. It starts with the company. The company does not need to have a deal for you to start doing your due diligence. Lots of operators here today to do your due diligence on. Understand their due diligence process. What is it? Can I see an example of your due diligence process from your last investment? Okay, let's talk about insurance real quick. Errors and omissions. If you're raising funds, make sure your syndication attorney has E&O so that if something goes wrong with your offering, they can cover it. Title insurance. Ask about it. This isn't just the rubber stamp that the title insurance company says. It's all the exceptions that could potentially stop you from doing what you're potentially planning to do. If you're doing development, I'd want a good understanding of all the title exceptions on the policy, and I'd want a fresh survey to reduce those as much as possible. What kind of property insurance do you have? What's the name of the company? Is it an A-rated carrier? What do they cover? What don't they cover? Key man policy. What if one of the partners dies? What happens? How do you get the funding to replace that person? And personal liability insurance. Nothing's worse than getting caught up with a partner going bankrupt because of something they did outside of the offering. So really quick, let's talk about operator due diligence. Who here is a GP, general partner? Who is looking to co-GP? Okay, so everybody understands that. And who is a fund-to-fund placing capital into operator projects? Fund-to-funds? Or have done that? Perfect. And then where are our limited partners at? All right, so let's talk about what to do and maybe what's not as important in a due diligence process on a company. This is doing due diligence not on a project, but on the company itself. So you have 3 types: co-GP, fund-to-fund, and limited partner. Everybody does the interview. We beat that to death. Let's talk about Google is your friend. Put my name in Google. What do you see? Right? Everybody should be doing that at a basic level, whether you're a co-GP, a fund-to-fund, or a limited partner. Portfolio performance. Everybody does portfolio performance. Let's talk about asking for previous communications. Everybody should be asking their operator, can you provide me an example of the last 3 communications you sent on a specific project? Referrals. And then once you gather that information, schedule a follow-up call. and ask clarifying questions based on your analysis. Meet multiple times. Meet in the office, meet at a property, meet at a conference. And then this is kind of where it becomes more co-GP or GP or fund-to-fund specific. Legal review, you want to make sure that your entity is subscribing to the operator's offering correctly. Property due diligence, again, limited partners, you should do your cursory research, but you're not going to do property due diligence in the way that an operator or a co-GP would. That's going to every property. That's looking through every single report. That's being on operators' due diligence calls. Company financials, that's the parent company financials. And then criminal credit, PFS, background check. Property due diligence. Now we're switching gears. Asking the operator, what is your property due diligence process? Should look something like this. High level, right? If you want a 700-point due diligence checklist, you can go to our website, spartaninvestors.com, spartan-investors.com. You can download it for free. This is all the things that we do to complete due diligence on a property. Understand, are you a one-man band or do you have a big team? One-man bands are okay, but this gets us into fees. What are your fees? This is a great question. This is a great opportunity. Everybody, oh, what's your fees and what's your split? Oh, that doesn't seem fair. There's no alignment there. Guys, if there's no ownership, do you think an operator would care if they own 1% of a deal that's going sideways? Right? What motivation do they have? Let's think about this differently. Let's ask, first of all fees need to be disclosed, but how do you plan to spend your fees? On the Maserati? Or are you going to hire 10 people this year to be a good steward of my investment? How did you spend your fees last year? What strategic investments did your company make last year with those fees that you earned? We're going to run through this really quick. We're going to get them all up on the screen. These are fees that you would see at a typical syndication. Apologize for the formatting, it didn't come through. Acquisition fee. Asset management fee, property management fees. Okay, some of these are required. You're going to be charged no matter what. Some of them are going to, as a sponsor fee. Some of them are a third-party fee. If you hire out property management as an operator, you shouldn't be paid property management fees. But if you're doing the property management, you should be compensated so that you can hire people to carry out those duties at the corporate level. General contractor fee. If you're acting as the general contractor and hiring staff and project managing that investment, you should be compensated for those fees. So I get questions like, this guy's got a lot of fees in here. It's like, well, is he providing a lot of third-party services? Or is he just a one-man band collecting a lot of fees? That's a better question. Do they seem excessive? I don't know. Are they doing third party? Are they growing their capacity as a company to do business? And again, how do you plan to spend those fees? Ask the question. So you're probably wondering, okay, so this operator has fees. How do I know that they're allocating them properly? How do I do my back checking? $100 million deal charges, let's say they charge a 1% acquisition fee, $1 million, right? That's $1 million of revenue coming to that company. How many employees should I expect to see? How many full-time employees? I'm not talking about your architect, your general contractor that you hire outside, but generally the heuristic is for a $1 million company, you should see 10 full-time employees. So if you're doing $100 million of AUM into your portfolio every year, I would expect your company to have 10 full-time employees. Accounting, asset management, executive leadership, okay, IR, right? Probably a mix of something like that. And it goes up from there. Are they doing more? You would expect to see more employees. Are they buying $1 billion a year with one person? Red flag. $50 million in company revenue, and this isn't properties sold, this isn't if you're flipping houses or something, it's not your total sales. This is revenue coming to the company in fees. 500 million, about 1,000 employees. Fees versus expenses. How are you planning to spend these fees? Well, I'm going to hire an architect and a civil engineer and do all these things. Those are expenses. Those are third-party expenses. Fees, generally, an analyst to oversee the portfolio, a full-time employee that is hired by your company, X company. Red flags. Somebody asked about red flags. Well, first one is just start with a Google research. I unfortunately invested passively in a deal gone really bad and being litigated by the SEC. And as the deal kind of unraveled, things started happening. People started complaining that, hey, I did work for this guy and he didn't pay me. And that's in Google, under the person's name. Inconsistent communications. Well, they said that the communication was to be every month, but then it's kind of every other month and not really following a process or a standard. And then obviously SEC complaints, judgments, whatever else you can find online. Exit strategy. The market's hot. We're selling our properties in 2 years at the projections of 5. Right? We're in a rising market right now. So ask the operator, what's your investment thesis? And what would happen, what would make you decide to exit early? Do I have a hand in that decision? And most of the time you don't. But what would the person do, what would the operator do to help inform you of why they made that decision? Well, I'm sick of managing this property, I don't want it anymore, I just wanted to sell it. No. How about maybe financials? Made sense, there's got to be some logic, and this is your opportunity to assess the company's reasoning behind making decisions and why you would want to make an investment. And then ask them, hey, have you sold early? Have you sold anything in less time than projected? And why did you decide to do that? And then if you really want to get comfortable, can you say, hey, can you share those communications with me leading up to that decision? Can you kind of give me an idea of what you shared with your investors in that, so I can kind of fact check what you told me about your decision to exit early? So with that, parting thoughts is just, if you're an operator you want to be an operator and you've never done a deal, all these things apply. Start making good communication strategies, making your investor referrals, getting these things organized so that you can get ahead of the inevitable investor questions. And as an LP, I challenge everybody just to ask better questions. Thank you.